So, imagine this. I'm 6 years old, riding my bicycle, pedaling like a mad woman. I'm not on a racetrack. I'm on the sidewalk. This is the beginning of my childhood. It's where I walked to school. It's where I played I played hopscotch, I rode my bike. It was amazing. And ultimately, it's where I fostered my sense of independence. So, for those of you who know me, you know that I love sidewalks. I know. So, fast forward 15 years and 7 cities later, this is my walk. The first one you see is on campus, and this is my after walk, what I do every day. I take MARTA from my home to get to campus so I can go to class. And I really enjoy it. It's super convenient. It's only 10 minutes. And what's really awesome is the same amount of distance how it is from Clough all the way to North Ave. So one day, I was walking home. And it wasn't a typical day because it was night. And this night, something happened that's never happened before. I was robbed. And what upset me about it wasn't the robbery. I mean, like, I was really shooken up, you know? Like, they stole my stuff, I needed it, almost took my homework. But what angered me the most was the response to the robbery. I was told by my friends, my family, and even the police department that I shouldn't have been walking. And I was angry. I was livid. How am I supposed to get around if I can't walk? It's only a half a mile away. I mean, it's just walking. It's what everyone does. What do you mean I'm being blamed for walking home? If I were driving, I wouldn't be told you shouldn't have had a car if it got broken into. So why was I incriminated for walking home? The other thing that made me upset is everyone said, you should just get a car. I'm a student. I live off campus. And if you're like me, more than likely you can't afford one. And to be honest, I didn't want to ask my family and friends for a ride. I felt like I was a burden. I didn't want to be chauffeured around everywhere. I'm used to walking. So for a year, I tried this whole Uber thing, and it got expensive really fast. And to be honest, I wasn't feeling like myself anymore. I didn't have that independence that I had when I was a child. I felt stifled. I felt isolated. I felt alone. And I was just wondering, why wasn't it okay for me to walk? So I found this really cool quote that made me feel much better. It's really about saying how in America, we pretty much leave sidewalk infrastructure in the back burner. So we're saying it's not a priority, we'll just fix it later. And anyway, those people should have a car. I found solace in this. Mostly because in this environment where we're so car dependent, we are actively discriminating against those who can't drive, like young people, the elderly, the disabled, those who can't afford a car, or those who just don't want to. And it just made me think, why does sidewalks have to be this way? So I got intrigued. So intrigued that I picked up a research internship here at Georgia Tech. We studied sidewalks and to make sure that they were compliant with the Association for Disabilities. Well, like me talking. Pretty much what we went over was making sure that sidewalks were in compliance with the ADA, which means that people have access to sidewalks, whether they're walking or physically impaired, or physiologically impaired. And while we were going from neighborhood to neighborhood here in Atlanta, I noticed something. I noticed that not all sidewalks were created equal, if they were even created at all. And it made me think, what would I do if I lived in a neighborhood that didn't have sidewalks and I didn't have a car? It didn't make sense to me that every place wasn't super walkable like it is here on campus. Walking around, being so alone and isolated, it felt like I was trekking a concrete desert. I didn't like it. And I didn't think it was right that walking was only for those who were super privileged like us on campus, that we can walk and live in Midtown and be excited and have a nightlife. Or the other people who walk, who are super marginalized with broken sidewalks and terrible access to transit. Well, I don't think it should be that way. I think that we should start making our cities more walkable for everyone, no matter where you are in the metro area. I have a theory. I believe that if we start investing in our sidewalks, we actually start investing in people. Just imagine an area that was actually designed for pedestrians and not cars. It would be really awesome. You could walk anywhere that you wanted. You can go out at night. You don't have to worry about a car or an Uber. I can go see my friends, work, play anytime, anywhere I want. How awesome would that be? But since we walk off campus, we notice in Atlanta that it's an auto-oriented development that pretty much disenfranchises those without a car. And I kept thinking, I was told that I shouldn't be walking. But no one on campus is ever told not to walk. You're not told when you live in Midtown not to walk. And I've never recalled a moment when I was told not to walk the Beltline. So why was it that I was told I can't walk in my own neighborhood? Why was I being an outcast for walking home a half a mile from the MARTA station? It made me look at sidewalks differently, because it didn't make sense to me that walking was either for the super privileged or it was seen as a taboo. Like I'm not a real adult or anything if I don't have a car. That makes no sense. That's not what cities are about. You move to a city so you can have access. You move to a city so you can be around people. And that's what sidewalks do. And I have a challenge for Atlanta. I see that there are a lot of plans going on to make Atlanta super walkable and invite so many transplants here and make it a global, thriving, competitive city. But that only happens if we have quality sidewalks, where people can work and play together, where they can go to their job and go home without having resources or access to a vehicle. That's what a city is about. Having mobility, having access without a car. So I want to ask you this, or actually, you have some homework. For those of you who drove, I want you to do something. When you drive home on your way, I want you to notice the sidewalks that are around you, if there are any at all. And while you're out there, I want you to think about what's around those sidewalks. What do those sidewalks look like? And imagine, what would it be like if I were walking those sidewalks? So I pose this to you. When you think about your health, your experience of the city, your independence, or even your outlook of life, remember that these only go as far as your sidewalks. Thank you.